This talk is inspired by the principles and teachings of Baha'i faith. I wish to provide a very brief overview for those who may not be familiar with the Baha'i faith, the most recent of world's universal religions. The principles and teachings of Baha'i faith inspire and guide this global age. The Baha'i faith is widely spread across our entire planet, from pole to pole and through all corners of the world. Including within its fold, it has diverse races, religions, nationalities, and ethnicities. It is a veritable microcosm of humanity. It is dedicated to the principle of the oneness of humankind. Thus, it is already suited for bringing about the unification and solidarity of the races, ethnicities, religions, and nations across the planet. This talk is centered on a fascinating and intriguing theme, the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul. The puzzle of consciousness is centered on learning from neuroscience. The mystery of the soul is centered on the fundamental beliefs of Baha'i faith, on the immortality of the human soul. Among other fundamental principles of Baha'i faith are independent investigation of truth, harmony of science and religion, elimination of all prejudices, equality of women and men, the oneness of the human race, the recognition of the validity of all the major religions of the world, and the dynamic, progressive interrelationship among them. This talk is my perspective on the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul. May it generate in the viewer an in-depth reflection on these realities. May it inspire the viewer to explore the Baha'i faith and its fundamental principles. I have presented on this theme in various forums, as well as in recent publications. This talk will be accompanied throughout with PowerPoint slides. PowerPoint slides facilitate order, clarity, and focus. Importantly, each respective PowerPoint slide bears authentication of the sources of references and citations used throughout this talk. In the Persian language, consciousness is Agahi. Consciousness implies awareness. Agahi is a fascinating and intriguing theme. It is profound and enigmatic. Consciousness, awareness, Agahi, is the state of being aware of and responsive to one's environment. The level of consciousness, Agahi, is lost at death and often during coma. Consciousness, Agahi, has numerous implications. It can be explored at several levels, from consciousness of the universe to the consciousness of the lower forms of life, and specifically to the consciousness of that unique, singular creation, the human. This course, conversation on consciousness, take place in various disciplines, among them in natural sciences, that is from neuroscience to social sciences, philosophy, psychology, and religion. Consciousness has a number of significant implications. Among them, awareness of one's purpose in life, awareness of one's identity. Consciousness inspires one to transcend beyond the physical to higher levels of awareness. Consciousness has engaged numerous scientists and scholars from several specialized fields. Nevertheless, the enigma the puzzle of consciousness continues to persist. Reflection on consciousness leads to reflection on the human soul. Confronted with puzzles and mysteries, we reach an impasse beyond which all understanding fails. Consciousness will evermore be a puzzle. The human soul will evermore remain a mystery. I do not intend to offer a comprehensive coverage of the theme consciousness, nor do I plan to provide answers to a multitude of questions that relate to consciousness in numerous fields of study, including the disciplines of psychology, philosophy, and few others. Nor do I intend to discuss these conventional, abstruse philosophical questions that have been promoted over time. Questions such as, is the mind real? Does the mind really exist? Importantly, this talk is in line with the current plan of the Baha'i world, guided by the supreme governing body of Baha'i faith, the Universal House of Justice, that is engaging in public discourse, is emphasized and encouraged. I now wish to venture into the fascinating yet intriguing theme on two mysteries, two puzzles. One, the puzzle of consciousness, and the mystery of the soul. I plan to place the focus of this talk first on learnings from neuroscience, on consciousness, and next to probe the fundamental beliefs of the Baha'i faith, that is, insights from the Baha'i faith on the human soul. Thus, I bring forth two puzzles, two mysteries, the inescapable, the inexplicable consciousness, and the unfathomable, the human soul. In 2005, the prestigious journal Science published a special anniversary issue that featured 125 questions scientists have failed to answer. What is the biological basis of consciousness? Was the second of the two top questions. Now, some years later, we have reached very few understandings, but are left with yet more questions and puzzles. Regarding the flow of this talk on the puzzle of consciousness and mystery of the soul, first I plan to present some current knowledge on the scientific fundamentals of the neuroscience of consciousness. Next, I plan to offer certain fundamental beliefs of the Baha'i faith on the human soul. The puzzle of consciousness. On one front, consciousness is a puzzle beyond comprehension. On another front, I wish to bring forth for reflection the mystery of the soul. The nature of the soul remains a mystery. The human soul continues to escape comprehension. The fundamental beliefs of Baha'i faith shed insight on the existence, the reality of the human soul and its immortality. The puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul will ever continue to mystify us. The puzzle of consciousness is the outcome of reflection and few fundamental learnings from neuroscience. The mystery of the soul is the outcome of reflection on insights gleaned from Baha'i sacred writings on the soul. Insights on consciousness extend to insights on the soul. That is, the nature and immortality of the soul. Such reflections lead to uniqueness and singularity of the human among all created things. Abdul Baha, one of the central figures of the Baha'i faith, has expounded on human uniqueness and human singularity through his numerous writings and talks, such as in Some Answered Questions. The flow of this presentation will advance from learnings in neuroscience to Baha'i beliefs on the human soul. These two enigmas, the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul, will ever continue to intrigue, but also to inspire us. It has been proposed that the puzzle of consciousness and also the mystery of the soul may relate to dimensions, other worlds that are incomprehensible. Before delving deeper into this theme, I wish to offer few words to explain my keen interest and fascination with consciousness. My interest in consciousness is the outcome of teaching, lecturing over the years on neuroscience and neuroanatomy to medical and graduate students, dissecting, probing, demonstrating, and identifying various parts of the human brain, each assigned to a specific function, some to hearing, some to language, some to sensation, some to muscle movement, some to memory, and so on, instill a sense of awe and also reverence, invariably leading to reflection on human uniqueness, on human singularity, that at one time such precious brain specimen had been the instrument of thought and consciousness of its noble owner. These instilled a sense, immense sense of reverence. Learning on the fascinating and awesome functions of the human brain and dissections in the laboratory intensified my sense of profound awe and fascination, leading to an in-depth reflection on the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul, bringing forth an intriguing, perennial question: what mysteries are beneath these structures? Those intricate structures, exquisitely specialized for specific functions, continue to evoke a sense of awe and wonderment, invariably leading to heightened awareness of human uniqueness. It is written in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in Psalms 8:4-6, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that thou visitest him? And in Shakespeare's Hamlet, poetically, this expression, what piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how express and admirable in action, how like an angel in apprehension, how like a God, how noble is the creation man. What piece of work is man? Inspires reflection on human uniqueness, on human singularity, leading to reflection on the human brain and human consciousness. An image of the magnificent human brain covered with numerous folds. The human brain is active throughout life. Waves constantly sweep across the brain, prompting one to ask, is consciousness simply a drifting wave of electrical currents over widespread areas of the brain, or is there something more to consciousness? Reflections on the human brain lead invariably to reflection on consciousness, agahi, and hence to insights gleaned from the mind and soul relationship. In Baha'i writings, The human soul is referred to as the rational soul. Thus, we ask once again, what is consciousness, آگاهی, in the human? Is it the state of being aware of one's surroundings? Is this sufficient? Lower animals are aware, conscious of their surroundings. Is consciousness characterized by sensation? Lower animals are sentient. They are responsive. Does consciousness imply feelings and emotions? Some lower animals are capable of this. Does consciousness imply thought and volition? Are some animals capable of this? Does consciousness imply biographical memory and the capability of planning for the future? At some level, some animals are capable of planning for the future. Think of the ant storing its food and the beaver building its dam. The key question yet remains, what is consciousness in the human? That is, what distinguishes humans from lower animals? Is it the power of rational and analytical thinking and reasoning? Numerous statements from Abdul Baha, one of the central figures of the Baha'i faith, convey that the unique feature of human consciousness is being conscious of one's spiritual reality. Abdul Baha speaks of the love of transcendence, that is, transcending beyond the physical dimension to the spiritual. The love of transcendence is one of the hallmarks of man. It is that higher level of consciousness, آگاهی, that makes humans unique, singular. Consciousness, آگاهی, in the human is centered on a unique entity, the human soul. It has the dimension of transcendence. That is the capability to transcend, rise beyond the physical to the higher level, the spiritual dimension. Once again, let us revisit the enigmatic human brain. Striking in this view are the extensive folds covering the entire surface of brain. Folds, protrusions called gyri, and the indentation called sulci. The folds increase significantly the surface area of the brain. We can ask, is consciousness in the human dependent on the surface area of the brain, hence the number of neurons, nerve cells? However, the brain of a non-human mammal, a whale, has more folds and surface area than the human. Or is there something more to consciousness in the human? Consciousness in the human goes well beyond folds and neurons. We must conclude that there is more to human consciousness. Now we ask, what is the structural anatomical basis of consciousness in the human? We do know that a particular region of the brainstem is involved in the control of consciousness. We also know that consciousness is associated with the brain. However, consciousness does not reside in a single entity in any part of the brain. There must be something more to consciousness. Consciousness remains a puzzle. We know that the integrity of the brain is fundamental to consciousness. Different states of consciousness can be detected by brain activity. Shortly, I will show patterns of brain activity, electroencephalogram, EEGs of the brain. Electroencephalograms vary with the state of consciousness. At this point, fundamental questions do emerge. Are there EEG waves, electroencephalogram waves, after the death of the brain? Having briefly shared some thoughts on the puzzle of consciousness, I now wish to make a major transition from neuroscience of consciousness, that is from the human brain, that is from the puzzle of consciousness to the mystery of the soul. Does consciousness survive the death of the brain? The puzzle of consciousness. From the puzzle of consciousness and the question I just asked, does consciousness survive the death of the brain? We go to the question of the mystery of the soul. Once again, we are compelled to reflect on a fundamental, a perennial question. Does consciousness survive the death of the brain? Is there consciousness after death? Many say there is no consciousness after death. Agahi after the death of the brain. However, a very few in the field have implied the continuation of consciousness after the death of the brain. Though hesitant to recognize that consciousness may continue after death, they nevertheless suggest continuation of an entity beyond the death of the brain. Clearly, these may have been alluding to an entity, the human soul. That is, continuation of the soul after the death of the brain. At this point, I wish to put forth before this audience a significant expression from one of several eminent neuroscientists who has gone beyond simply hinting. Consciousness after death, continuity of the human brain. Sir John Eccles, neurophysiologist, recipient of a Nobel Prize in 1963 in physiology and medicine. For his work on the synapse, he was a staunch believer in the reality of the human soul. Eccles refers to the continuation of consciousness beyond the death of the body. All our experience of matter have the status of second-order reality. Hence, there is an impossible and tragic distortion of our efforts to give an account of the world as well as experience it, because we leave out the primary reality. If there is this ignorance of the way in which consciousness are related to the brain, there is no reason to deny the possibility that after the disintegration of the brain that comes with death of the body, conscious selves may have other existences under quite unimaginable conditions. We ask once again, does consciousness survive the death of the brain? What about the afterlife? Such questions and expressions lead directly to the classical research of the two pioneers in this field, Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Such questions and expressions lead to these two pioneers in the field. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross studied stages of grief when dealing with fatal disease. The stages of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I wish to include a poetic expression from Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out. But when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only if there is light from within. Studies on near-death experience share some common features. That is, seeing light at the end of a tunnel, a pleasant experience, seeing dead relatives, life review, not wanting to come back. It is noteworthy that such experiences have brought a major change in their lives. Such experiences have been taken seriously by some, but ridiculed by others. However, they are not contrary to Baha'i beliefs. Accounts of pleasant experience, not wanting to come back, a major change in life, and their life transformation experiences are in line with Baha'i beliefs. Now, few fundamental beliefs of the Baha'i faith on the soul and its immortality. Among the abundant, rich resources of Baha'i faith on this theme are the tablets of Abdul-Baha to Professor Auguste Henri Forel. Photograph of Professor Auguste Henri Forel with Mrs. Forel, Emma Steinway. Professor Auguste Henri Forel was a renowned entomologist and also a brain scientist. His picture is on a 1,000 franc Swiss banknote. This banknote pays tribute to Forel. The image refers to Forel's work on brain, anatomy, and entomology. Auguste Forel's research on the human brain resulted in the discovery of deep neural pathways, connections within the brain, known in the textbooks as fields of Forel. Auguste Forel was an agnostic when he wrote to Abdul-Baha on December 28, 1920. He asked, in spite of my agnosticism, he asked forthright, yes or no, may I belong to the Baha'i faith? Abdul-Baha wrote back to Forel a long and interesting answer, which was received several months after the passing of Abdul-Baha. In February 2021, the guardian of Baha'i faith, Shoghi Effendi, sent the translation of the letter of Abdul-Baha to Forel. Subsequently, on August 21, 1921, Forel accepted the Baha'i faith. Abdul-Baha, in his letter known as the Tablet of Forel, provides insights on the mind, the soul, and the senses. From among those insights, I want to share the following. Abdul-Baha, with scientific and spiritual logic, proves the existence of God and the reality of the human soul, mind, and spirit. On the soul. The soul had limitless manifestation of its own. The soul is ever endowed with full strength. The soul is a power that is free from all agencies, whether it be in sleep or waking, is in motion and ever active. Despite the loss of reason, the power of the soul would still continue to exist. The soul changeth not. It depended not upon the body. In other talks and writings, such as some answered questions, Abdu'l-Baha answers a number of questions which were posed to him on life after death and the outcome of the human soul. Among them is the following selection. Life after death in Baha'i sacred writings on the human soul, or the human spirit called the rational soul. The question was, after the body has been cast off and the spirit has taken flight, through what will the rational soul subsist? Answer, some hold that the body is the substance and that it subsists by itself, and that the spirit is an accident which subsists through the substance of the body. The truth, however, is that the rational soul is the substance through which the body subsists. If the accident, the body, is destroyed, the substance, the spirit, remains. At this point, on this theme, I wish to share a poetic expression from the Persian poet and mystic Hafiz of Shiraz from the 14th century. On the day that I die, in the span of a single breath, grant me but a glimpse of you, and then, free from the desires of life and this world, upward I rise. Life after death in Baha'i sacred writings. On this theme are illuminating passages. Among them, at death, there is an unveiling. Worlds holy and spiritually glorious will be unveiled to your eyes. Inspired by Baha'i sacred writings, I wish to revisit the premise of this presentation, the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul. The puzzle of consciousness, closely associated with the mystery of the soul. Consciousness will ever remain a puzzle. The soul will ever remain a mystery. In quest of understanding consciousness, neuroscientists have reached an impasse, a point beyond which one can go no further. In quest of the puzzle of consciousness, Dr. Stuart Hameroff, known for his studies on consciousness, has proposed an intriguing, thought-provoking model, concept for reflection and contemplation. This model, this concept, may apply to the puzzle of consciousness and also to the mystery of the soul. It points to dimensions and mysteries that lie beyond comprehension. I invite reflection on this perceptive model. Consciousness may in fact lie at the boundary that is on the edge between two worlds, two dimensions, the classical world and the quantum world. This holds fantastic, the quantum world holds fantastic realities. the classical world and the quantum world. Consciousness may be at the edge, the boundary between these two worlds. The strange, bizarre features of the quantum world may apply to the puzzle incomprehensibility of consciousness. Hence, it is a puzzle. Likewise, this model may apply to the mystery of the soul. Thus, the puzzle of consciousness may be due to certain phenomena. We may be dealing with a dimension where conventional, traditional reasoning no longer apply. Consciousness is a puzzle. The soul is a mystery. Both are incomprehensible. Hence the puzzle of consciousness and the mystery of the soul. The quantum world has absurdities and strange realities we cannot comprehend. I want to call forth a statement from Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize Physics in 1965. He has stated that anyone who claims to understand quantum mechanics is either lying or crazy. Thus, I will not attempt to explain this model, the absurdities of the quantum mechanics world, to this audience. Nevertheless, I want to introduce and emphasize the thought that we may indeed be dealing with puzzles and mysteries. These possibly call attention to the point that both consciousness and soul are inscrutable. Consciousness is a puzzle and the soul is a mystery. These two mysteries, consciousness and the soul, are inscrutable. Consciousness is on the edge between the quantum world and classical world. The soul is on the edge between the quantum world and classical world. Baha'i sacred writings assert that the soul is a mystery beyond comprehension. The soul is a sign of God, a heavenly gem whose reality the most learned of men hath failed to grasp, and whose mystery no mind, however acute, can ever hope to unravel. The soul is a mystery. We can delve deeper into Baha'i sacred writings to glean certain insights, certain images that may shed glimpses on that world of mystery, glimpses on the mystery of death and the continuation of the soul. The meaning of life, death, the soul, and the possibility of an afterlife have been man's perennial questions from the very beginning of human existence and will remain of central concern forevermore. In the Baha'i faith, there is not a belief in bodily resurrection, but the continuation of the human soul after the death of the body. Death is a transition from the earthly plane to the spiritual world. Baha'i sacred writings state, worlds holy and spiritually glorious will be unveiled before its eyes. And we are given the analogy of the embryonic world, which Abdu'l-Baha expounds so beautifully and explicitly. This perceptive analogy, introduced and explained through the wisdom of Abdu'l-Baha, holds profound insights meriting in-depth reflection. The analogy of the embryonic world can be applied to explain the transition that takes place at death from this physical world to the spiritual world. Just a brief glimpse of the analogy of the embryonic world. During the 9 months of gestation, the embryonic environment is essential, critical for the embryo, the fetus, as it must develop organs and faculties which will be essential for its continuing progress after birth into post-embryonic world. The analogy of the embryonic world can be applied to this physical world. The physical body provides the essential environment for the gestation, the development of the human soul. The development of faculties such as love, compassion, forgiveness, which will be essential to progress in the spiritual worlds of God. This image shows the fetus surrounded by the fluid in the amniotic sac, comfortably cushioned and protected. The fetus is connected by the umbilical cord to that essential organ, the placenta. Through the placenta, it gets all its sustenance. Further reflection on this analogy discloses numerous profound insights. During the period of embryonic development, the placenta is the organ essential to the existence of the fetus. All the critical functions of the fetus, such as its blood circulation, nutrition, and so forth, are made possible through the placenta. At birth, however, the connection to the placenta must be severed. The umbilical cord must also be severed. The placenta must be shed. It may seem inconceivable that the newborn could continue to survive and flourish after the loss of the very organ which had been hitherto essential to its very existence. In the fetus, this may be viewed indeed as a catastrophic event, but is it? The placenta, no longer of use, but rather an impediment, is cast off and disintegrates. Similarly, the physical body, no longer of use, only an impediment, is cast off. By comparison, the physical body, similar to that placenta, the one and only means for continuation of physical existence, must be shed. Let us capture the next glimpse. The shedding of the body at death may be viewed catastrophic. What is it? It is a transition from the earthly plane to the spiritual world. Worlds holy, spiritually glorious, will be unveiled before its eyes. When the limit is reached, when the gestation period is complete, at death, the body, the physical garment, is cast off. The fledgling soul can soar unhampered. The soul continues its development in a world which will be impossible to describe, just as the post-embryonic world will be impossible to describe in a language comprehensible to the fetus, born from the dark and limited environment of the womb into the world of immense possibility. Its lungs expand and fill with spiritual oxygen. Using words from Baha'i sacred writings, in the words of Baha'u'llah, bursting through its cage, he will, even as the bird of spirit, wing its flight to his holy and everlasting nest. There is indeed a lot more to say about the mystery of the soul. But at this point, I conclude my comments, my remarks on this most important theme.